Layoffs are more than just a headline, they impact real people and sometimes their livelihoods permanently. But did you know there's a right and a wrong way to conduct them? Today, we're looking to the Twitter layoffs that took place in 2022 and considering what they teach us about how layoffs are supposed to work. The content shared on this channel is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional legal advice. Always consult with a qualified attorney or HR professional for specific guidance on your situation. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your experiences with HR in the comments. Hi, I'm Harlow Reed, creator of the HR Insider. Welcome to this first video in our new series on workplace layoffs. Whether you're an HR professional managing workforce reductions or an employee curious about your rights, this video will provide valuable insights about crucial steps to consider when planning or navigating layoffs. In this video, we'll cover the WARN Act, what went wrong with Twitter layoffs, and most importantly, what you can expect from human resources if you're ever impacted by a layoff. So, what is the WARN Act? It's actually an abbreviation, WARN, for Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, which is a federal law that requires any employer with more than 100 employees to give 60 days notice before they proceed with big layoffs or closures of their locations. And its purpose is twofold. First, it gives employees time to find new jobs or make other arrangements for their financial well being. And it also requires employers to notify states where employees reside that layoffs are coming. And the purpose of notifying the states is to help them prepare for the increases in requests for unemployment and disability or employment assistance, like seeking a new job. So it gives states time to prepare for those increases in employee requests that they may receive as a result of layoffs. But if an employer fails to follow the WARN law, there are penalties associated with it. There are consequences, and those consequences include back pay, benefits to employees, and of course, potential fines. But here's the deal: layoffs have to be conducted in accordance with several specific employment laws. There are so many and far more than just the WARN Act, and I won't go into all of them in this video. But unfortunately, some employers choose to bypass these laws, and others are simply willing to take the risk of noncompliance. The reality is, these laws aren't always effective as a deterrent for every employer. And this can occur when leadership determines that the cost of compliance with laws or internal policies outweighs other pressing business needs. And that's what makes the risk of non-compliance seem acceptable. A similar situation is actually talked about in my video, Fired for Being Gay. In that case, an employee, Donald Zarda, was terminated without notice, which denied him the benefit of due process, considering all of his allegations and things like that he made about his experience as an employee. And like Twitter, the example with Zarda highlights circumstances where businesses prioritize other interests over legal or ethical obligations. So watch that video to learn more about some companies, why they choose to take the risk of ignoring some of these important laws. One thing about WARN, it does allow for certain exceptions, such as natural disasters or unforeseen business circumstances. However, as we'll see in this case with Twitter, qualifying for these exceptions can be very tricky, very tricky and often very difficult for employers to prove. So, what happened at Twitter? Well, in late 2022, Twitter laid off nearly half of its workforce shortly after Elon Musk's takeover. And many of the employees who were affected reported that they were abruptly locked out of their systems and notified of their terminations by human resources without giving them any prior warning. And in my video, HR Advocate or Enemy, I actually review the circumstances that can make HR act as either an advocate or an adversary. And if you haven't watched it yet, I highly encourage you to check it out to better understand how environments like this one can surface. But as a result of what happened with the employees at Twitter, many of them filed lawsuits alleging that Twitter violated the WARN Act by failing to provide the required 60-day notice. And some cases also include California's more strict or restricted WARN laws, which apply to temporary layoffs too. So, not just permanent layoffs, but temporary layoffs. Now, of course, Twitter alleged that their defense was, hey, the layoffs fell under the unforeseen business circumstances exception that is available to employers under the WARN Act. They stated that the rapid financial changes after Musk's acquisition is what led to these abrupt and sudden layoffs that were issued without notice and out of compliance with the WARN Act. So let's say if you are an employee and something like this happens to you, what are some of the things that you can do to help you protect yourself? Well, the first thing is watching videos like this because this video explains what the WARN Act is, but it's also important to know your state specific laws. The WARN Act is a federal law. Some states have even more restrictive laws around layoffs. We talked earlier about the California WARN Act that covers situations other than the federal law. And so it's important to know what your state laws are, and a simple Google search can give you insight on that. Talking with HR professionals, consultants, lawyers can also help you understand what your rights are if you've been impacted by a layoff. I would encourage you that before you sign anything, if you receive any kind of severance, I would encourage you to talk to a lawyer, have them look at the terms of the agreement. You have lawyers out there who will, consult with you for an hour at $150 to $350 and then review any document that you are being asked to sign. And I would just encourage you to spend the time and to do that because sometimes these agreements can place restrictions on you that aren't necessarily legal. And that's just the truth, especially with some of the more recent legislation that has been passed regarding from the National Labor Relations Board and restrictions that they've placed on agreements like layoff and severance agreements. So the first thing is just know your rights, know what your state laws are, know what the federal laws are, and an HR consultant or a lawyer can assist you with understanding how those things work in your area. The second thing you can do if you are an employee that's impacted by layoffs is save all the documentation that you've received. Save your termination notices, your emails, any related documentation. Why do you want to save that? Well, because these can be really crucial if you need to file a complaint or a lawsuit. The thing about layoffs, I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of laws that are applicable to layoffs, and an employment lawyer or an HR consultant will be able to analyze the facts of your situation to determine if all of those laws have been followed. Layoffs are a very, very time consuming and enormous act on by HR, and if they're just done abruptly and not done correctly, there are a lot of mistakes that can be made. And so, saving those notices and emails and communications that you've received, they would certainly help and serve you well if you feel like some of these laws or your rights or internal policies haven't been followed. The next thing is I've already mentioned, knowing your rights and seeking out assistance to help you understand what your rights are. But if you believe your rights have been violated, you definitely want to consult with an employment attorney or reach out to the Department of Labor for guidance as well, because they can be a great assistance. I mentioned in another video that there are other resources that you can connect with that will possibly be free to you to help you understand everything that's happening. A lot of times when people are laid off, the impact of that is so stressful that it's hard for them to process all of the information. So sometimes it's good to work with an employment lawyer or an HR consultant who can just help you level set about what's happening and whether or not all the boxes have been checked in terms of things that employers are obligated to do. And then many companies offer severance packages or career transition services. So, always ask what's available from that standpoint. And if an employer tells you there's nothing available, it's okay to ask them if they can provide something. As I said, when layoffs happen, sometimes it can be paralyzing. You're not sure where to go, especially if you've been with the same employer for many years, and having that career transition assistance will help you. You can also reach out to your state unemployment office to find out what free services they provide around, helping you seek new employment. So, what are some of the things that HR can do? What should you expect of HR if you are impacted by a layoff? Well, first of all, HR should definitely understand federal and state laws like the WARN Act. Non-compliance can lead to costly lawsuits and damage an organization's reputation as well. So, it's just critically important that HR is very well versed and understands what the obligations are that have been placed on the employer by either the state or federal laws. Uh, if you don't understand what is happening, that is a problem as well. HR should have a very clear communication strategy. Even when layoffs are unavoidable, transparency and empathy and providing support can go a long way in maintaining trust with employees. I mean, think about people who may want to be rehired or things like that. Um, often, Oftentimes employers will lay employees off and then rehire them. So that's another reason why you should expect HR to have clear communication. You should expect them to uh, be transparent about what they're doing in terms of why they're doing it and what the next steps are in terms of supporting employees. And then the last thing that you should expect from an HR department is to um, develop a layoff plan. They should have a layoff plan that includes notice periods, that includes support resources for those that are affected and also those that are not affected. This is something that a lot of people don't think about. Oftentimes, you have individuals who are left behind who have lost great, coworkers and people who they relied on in the workplace, and they are saddened and feel somewhat frustrated, and sometimes they can even be paralyzed as well. So that's why it's important for HR to provide those individuals with support services. Have you experienced or managed a layoff before? Share your story in the comments and let's learn from each other. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video. I'm Harlow Reed, and remember, every employee deserves to feel supported.